welcome everybody. It is always a joy. I have to just say, it is always a joy to be with you. And welcome to Refresh. It's this time we have to connect, to be inspired, to learn something. Kate, you didn't know that. You're going to teach us some things today. And ultimately feel a bit better for this time spent together. And today it's doing well by doing good. So I just want to say, I was sitting here at my desk early this morning. I'm thinking, okay, spring is in the air. And then I realized, I don't know, for any of you in the Midwest who have been traveling, it was snowing in Chicago last week, right? The vagaries and temperatures run parallel to this ongoing vagaries of everyday life, right? Everyday life is just filled with these unexpecteds. You wouldn't be surprised for me to say college sports being one of them, totally being turned upside down. You know, another show will definitely discuss athletes now being paid, college athletes, but the NIL, name, image, and likeness, combined with a lack of governance, is creating like topsy-turvy in the world of college sports. And how about this? COVID is back. I don't know, Kate, some of your friends have COVID. I know a bunch of mine have COVID.
I had COVID 2 weeks ago.
Oh, there you go.
After avoiding it for 2 years.
I know, it just seems to be happening. That Dawn was home on our team. It's back. Cases are rising. But the good thing is hospitalizations are not. I read this morning that 50% of Americans have had COVID, I being one of them. And I'm grateful for being one of those cases, perhaps just like you, Kate, that has come and gone, right?
Yep.
How about this? Masks for traveling are gone. And I have to say, I have yet to decide what I will do. As much as I really found them to be an annoyance, I do believe there's a greater good. I do believe in the greater good. Today is a show about living into the greater good. So I will decide, I guess on Sunday when I take my next flight, exactly how I'm going to handle the no mask demand being removed, but feeling like I am part of contributing to the greater good. And then the last thing, of course, there is the cost of living. Extra shekels, dollars that are having to pay food and gas, and yet, I say it again, we are surrounded by goodness and certainty in many areas. And we always like to focus on that. People and companies who put their stake in the ground, that build products and they provide services that amplify generosity, thoughtfulness, right? And the collective desire to do well by doing good. I'm looking at the names here who have joined us so far, and those of you on Facebook, just say hello to all of you. Doing well by doing good. That gets you up every single morning. And today we welcome Kate Huyett, who actually gets to do that every morning, right? She's had an incredibly interesting and accomplished career to date, and she'll share that with us. But she's currently the Chief Customer Officer for one of the hottest companies today, Bombas. How many people here are buying Bombas? You can always just put it in the chat, right? Of course. All right. I want Kate's price for her Bombas. Judging by their sales numbers, probably most of you, and it could be said that Bombas is in the happy feet business, right? Any business that's about making something happy is a great business. And as all of us know, it's funny, I went yesterday to go see somebody about my health, and she said, just remember, your feet impact the health of your entire body. Okay. And I didn't make that up. That actually happened. But Bombas has embraced an even larger and expansive impact, which is the mission-driven focus where a business serves as a force for good. Kate, we're so happy you're here today. I know how busy you are. Kate and I have been are members of a group called Women in America, which is a wonderful collegial connection. And you all know how much we value connection of women and mentoring and leadership, and getting on Kate's calendar has really been difficult. So we thank you for the time today, because Kate's going to share her story about where we can find a place of passion and purpose that align with the goals of so many of us. So let me ask you this, Kate. First of all, say thank you. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Yeah, good. Tell us, how did it start for you?
How did my time at Bombas start?
Yeah, how did it all start for you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was working at a different company that had been sold, and a colleague from that company said, hey, two guys that I used to work with are starting this sock company. They're the best socks ever. They need some marketing advice. Will you talk to them? I was like, sure, why not? So I hopped on the phone with the Bombas founder, and he, asked a bunch of questions. We were on the phone for almost an hour. And he's a consummate salesman. At the end of the call, he goes, we're actually hiring someone to do this kind of stuff. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, I really enjoyed that call. So then, conversations progressed from there. And I think, something that made me smile as you were doing your introduction is you talked about joy. The previous company I worked for was an online dating site. Whenever I told people that's what I did, or gave them a free subscription, there was no joy. But I know I felt joy when I got Bombas as part of my interview process, and I saw that, as I was talking to them, the founders, about joining, when I gave the socks to other people, there was joy. And that sounds quite small, but actually really meant quite a lot to me in the interview process, on top of all the other, great stuff related to the mission, and so much more. So that was how the initial connection happened.
But Kate, you just said something and really, really interesting. You said joy doesn't sound like a lot or much.
Yeah.
And yet, and listen, let me just say this for those who don't know, and I want to hear a little bit. I mean, we're a banker at Goldman Sachs, right? One of the, very. How should we depict Goldman Sachs here? One of the most prestigious places that you can work in banking and finance, right? And the idea of joy, which is so central to how we feel about the world, is we put it like aside when it comes to work. And yet here, it presented itself on a platter to you and you responded.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's joy in the product, and actually quite a lot of joy in the culture. A lot of joy around, giving back, but also we have we're in the process of rewriting our core values, but we have one around not taking yourself too seriously. And I will, when people are interviewing here and they ask about the culture, one of the things I tell them is I've never laughed more at a job. It's like, I'm working hard. I'm so, like, there's definitely, not every moment is I'm cracking up. But the ability to be able to laugh with the people you're working with, and also, along with sort of the more serious moments of joy, of being able to help someone who needs it, being able to experience that whole spectrum at work is something, really unique that I've not found as much really anywhere else.
But you would prophesize. I mean, you would, what's the word I want? You would share that with people as something, as a real positive for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I mean, we spend a lot of time at work, so it's great to be able to truly enjoy it in a sort of
you might
way.
as well have joy and laugh, and like that's our philosophy as well. And we've been doing that. We've been having a great time lately.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, for those people who are not familiar with Bombas, possible, tell us a little bit about the company. Talk about all this doing well, doing good, but can you just lay it out so people can understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bombas is a comfort-driven apparel brand. We donate an item for every item purchased. So we started, and we're most famous for socks. So we started with, you buy a pair of socks, and they're unbelievable socks. I can go into more why if that's of interest, but when you buy a pair, we donate a pair through our network of now 3,500 giving partners across the country. And then over time, we've added underwear, which is the second most requested clothing item in homeless shelters, and t-shirts, which are actually the third most requested clothing item in homeless shelters. And sort of the foundational belief is that people who are experiencing homelessness or who are in need deserve the dignity of sort of clean items of everyday basic clothing. And that was sort of the starting philosophy. So to date, we've donated more than 75 million items all across the US in all 50 states, and some abroad as well, but really predominantly in the US.
I mean, that's an astounding number.
It is.
And it's interesting because I am sure, let me ask you this. I don't know if you've done an assessment because you're the chief customer officer. I am sure people have bought into the quality of your goods, and I do want to hear about what that is.
Yes.
But they have definitely bought in, actually, with their dollars and their commitment to the broader commitment. And there are other companies like Tom's was one of them, I guess, who really pioneered here, and Warby Parker with glasses.
Right.
Tell us about that. What are you learning? And now you're obviously expanding to underwear as well. Tell me what you're learning about how we think as consumers.
Yeah. So I think we obviously borrowed a lot. Generously, we borrowed a lot from Tom's. I think one thing that was a bit of a twist for us relative to their model is we were really focused from day one on solving a problem in our own community. And so really focusing on local giving. I mentioned our network of 3,500 giving partners across the US. And that feels really, really important to us. It means we're not, we're kind of meeting people where they are, and also allowing our customers to impact. We don't allow customers right now to sort of direct where their donation goes, but there's something really special about knowing, all right, I live in Manhattan and I know within 5 miles of where I live, there are, a dozen giving partners that are receiving this product. And there's something really unique about that sort of directness of the impact, especially I think because street homelessness in particular, which is only one element of the in-need population that we serve, it's really visible. And so I think there's something really, really tangible about being able to see, I see this problem, and also I know that my purchases are impacting this problem in this place. So I think that's pretty powerful, and we find that localness resonates quite a lot with customers. And I think also the other thing that we've really seen is customers are really smart. They know when companies are real with their mission, and they know when they're faking it. And so I think our consistency over time in the mission has really gone a long way with our customers.
Yeah, and you're seeing that with the way the business is growing, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
All right, so I wanted to say hello to all of our chat people. Really, remember, this is a conversation. Anybody who has any questions, please forward them along. Just know that Rylander Hanford is moderating our chat today. So hi, Ryan, and thank you so much. And we've got the inimitable Katie Graham on Facebook. And hey, Erin, great to see you from the West Coast. Always good to be connected. Katie is on Facebook. Kate is on my screen. I have to do that every now and then. Kate, you said, hey, listen, these are really great socks. And if you really want to know, let me tell you. And I tell you why I'm particularly interested. Yeah. I find that as we look at the world, we don't really think about the details. We just expect stuff to show up. And I always love when I learn about how people think through details. So tell us why these socks are so great.
Yeah. So the founders spent 2 years on R&D. And basically looked at a bunch of really fancy, expensive socks and looked at what are the things that differentiate those socks from like an everyday, 6-pack that you might pick up at a Kohl's or a Target. And so they sort of brought those features into a lower price point. Some of my favorites and some of our customers' favorites that we hear about the most, the honeycomb arch support. So there's a sort of tighter squeeze around your arches. That's amazing. There's a thicker, depending on which socks you buy, our line is expanded quite a lot, but there's a thicker footbed, which means it has more of a cushiony feel versus many other socks are sort of equal thickness the whole way around. We sew the heel cup in a specific way so that it doesn't move around off of your heel. So you'll notice if you wear Bombas, they tend to stay put. We also tested, I think it's like 70 plus different levels of elasticity to find kind of the exact right amount of elasticity so that they don't slouch, but also not so tight that they don't stay up. And then the seamless toe is something else that we hear a lot about from customers that they really, really love. But I think your comment about the details resonates. That one of the sort of operating principles that we talk about is we focus on the little big things. It's the small stuff that makes a big difference, and that's true in the product, but it's also true in the world of giving. You think, all right, giving someone who's in need a pair of socks probably doesn't have that big of an impact, but what you find is it actually has very disproportionate impact to what you might think. It might be that person's only sort of interaction with another person that day. Might be their only conversation, in addition to the actual material warmth of the sock.
I think that point in particular really resonates with a lot of us. I know that we have Jackie on from Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. They are a definitely give back organization focused on safety grown out of the Firehouse Subs brand. They were all firemen, so they have an interesting story as well. I know Trish is on that. She serves in a lot of philanthropic areas. I guess the question for me is, maybe you should maybe. Can communities come back and say, listen, we want to partner with Bombas. We're going to put together a whole sales drive for you, and we'd love you to look at some of our partner organizations. Is it that transactional? Can something like that happen?
We don't yet. I would say we don't yet have anything truly operationalized around that. We do something we did a good amount of during COVID that I was really proud of our giving team for organizing was we helped other companies distribute products that were needed to some of our shelter partners. So, for example, Brooklyn, and we helped them distribute bed linens to some of our partners. Things like that were great. It's something that we've, I think is interesting. But right now, our focus is really predominantly on that buy one, donate one, and working with our existing, pretty massive network of partners.
But that's a great idea. But that is a really, really good idea.
Yeah,
you can
we do
organize at your corporate level, right?
Yeah, we do work quite a lot with the giving partners around the design of the donation products. So the donation sock, the donation underwear, and the donation T-shirt. Many people don't know this, but we actually, for the most part, donate a slightly different item than the one that you buy. And the way that it's different is sort of specified by the community that we serve. So, for example, the socks are treated with an antimicrobial spray that makes it less likely to smell if you are unable to access laundry for extended periods of time, which many of the community we serve are. And color for similar reasons.
And if you live in my house, laundry might not be accessible in a timely way.
That's fair.
It's possible. I'm just saying, right?
Sure.
It's just one of those things. Now, I have a question from the West Coast. If this is Jill Ozer, hey Jill, it's great to see you, or not see you, but hear from you. Jill also, she has a wine company that she is actually growing that also believes in giving back, and they do every quarter to companies. She wants to know, how does the management team ensure joy permeates throughout your organization? Like, what are the kind of things that are done?
It's a really good question. I think probably the number one thing is they just care about it. So when I joined Bombas, Dave, the founder, said that one of the things he cared most about sort of winning as he started the business was the best place to work award. And obviously that's bigger than joy. There's also some, hygiene factors that go into that. But I think even more so than at big companies, what I found at startups is that the culture of the company really reflects the personality of the founder or founders. And we have a group of founders that are that like to laugh and want to bring joy. And we've our mission, is homelessness is a serious issue, and so I think it's a bit of a balance of trying not to play the violins, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But to sort of approach it with a joyfulness and a positivity of like, kind of we're showing up to help, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. It's an underlying culture that you pick up from your founders and owners, and then you have carte blanche to amplify that as you all see fit as you come together. That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah.
Jackie wants to know, how do you market your impact? Do you ever focus on specific recipients, or does it need to be more generic due to privacy issues?
It tends to be a little bit more generic for privacy issues. We'll sometimes spotlight. We send if you're on our email list, one of the things you'll see on a pretty regular cadence would be a giving update. So we'll periodically highlight, impact that we've had in aggregate, or we may spotlight a specific giving partner. We generally have tended to shy away from more personal stories for the reasons that you cited. But I will say, particularly in our offline marketing, we do talk quite a lot about the one purchase, one donated mission. It's pretty heavily featured.
Right. and responded to. As a matter of fact, you've created so much interest that people are asking, where do you buy Bombas socks? Who carries them?
Yeah. So
We're in Florida, by the way, Kate, just so you know. We're
okay.
here.
So I'd say bombas.com is the best place. Mostly because you'll have the widest selection. We do have a handful of wholesale partners, including Dick's Sporting Goods, Athleta, Nordstrom, and Shields.
Well, well, I don't know about the last one, but we have all of the above, and of course, Bombas.com. We definitely have that. I'm actually going hiking in a couple of weeks. I need
our hiking socks are great. I would try the merino hiking socks.
Okay, there you go. And I'm literally, it's on my list to do today. Who knew?
Great.
Who knew? But now
Great.
I know.
Sorry, another quick plug for Bombas. If you buy direct through the site, you get 20% off your first order.
Guess where I'm going today, ladies and gentlemen. All good. It's funny. I heard when we talked a little bit earlier this week, you talked about selling seasons for socks.
Yep.
And I thought that was interesting, right? Because, basically you take your socks out. Now that's true. When I go to Colorado, I might put my socks on that are a little heavier with stars on them, like snowflakes.
Yep.
How many seasons are there?
Honestly, depends where you live. In Florida, I bet there's fewer seasons than Chicago, where you mentioned it was snowing last week.
Yeah.
We work on a pretty traditional retail apparel calendar of basically we release 4 seasons a year. But we see, in the summer, we see demand for our no-show socks, which you can wear with low-cut sneakers or low-cut shoes that are more popular in the summer. In the winter, we see an uptick of our merino wool socks. So we do see some variation over the course of the year of what people are buying.
And and is there like a color wave right now that's very popular? Do I have socks to be popular?
So I hate to say it, like black, white, gray, and navy are the perennial best sellers. But I would say there's a ton of great colors right now. I'm a particular fan of our tropical socks, which are a spring new release. They're very colorful and I don't know, just feel happy.
I think at Generation W girls, I don't know, maybe that's what we add to our, maybe in June we'll have a colorful socks day and we'll send them all to you as our chief customer officer. Okay, just to see us all in our crowning colorful sock glory here in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. Let me just say hi to everybody. Welcome all of our friends at Facebook. Hi, Jill again. We're here. Learn something. Feel good about being together. By all means, send us your questions or your comments. We're here with Kate Huyett, who is the Chief Customer Officer for Bombas, which is a company that's all about, well, it's a force for good. Let's leave it that way. A force for good. I think in the world we're living in today, anything that feels like a force for good is something that we're going to gravitate to and want to support. So we thank you for that, Kate. We talked a little bit about your career because it's an interesting career. You didn't wake up one day at Bombas. Give us a little bit of your story of how you got there.
Yeah. So I started my career in finance. I worked at Goldman, as we discussed earlier. I did a couple of years in private wealth management. Really was fascinated by the capital markets, and so moved internally within Goldman to the debt capital markets group. And while I was there, I covered consumer retail and healthcare companies. And I was on that desk from 2008 to 2010. So it was a very exciting time for the debt markets and the overall US economy. And I had always been interested in sort of how companies were built, but I loved, especially in the 2 years I was on the debt capital markets desk, talking to, the treasurer at McDonald's about what was happening in their business. And to me, that
you said you're on the debt market, so you particularly focused on their debt.
Yeah, so I was on the investment grade capital markets.
For those of us who have not come up in finance, just break it a little bit more for us, if you will.
So for example, if a company like Walmart was going to issue bonds, I was on the desk that worked with Walmart to figure out how big is the bond offering going to be? What's the mix of different, 5, 10, 30-year bonds, help price it, help market it to investors, and then also sort of keep them updated on opportunities that they might have within their debt structure.
Okay, so you knew what was helping. You knew what was happening in the financial belly of these companies.
Yes, yeah, and
Okay.
and I think for me, as I was in that role, got more and more interested in what was happening on the operational side of the business, and the customer side of the business, started to be more interesting than the financial markets aspect of the business. And so I left Goldman in 2010. Actually, briefly went to business school, realized it was not for me, dropped out during orientation.
Hold on,
And
wait, don't skip over that because there's so
okay,
many people, young people, older
yeah,
people. What made you know that business school wasn't for you?
I think probably the biggest thing was when I got to orientation, everyone else was really excited to be there,
Right?
and I just wasn't, to the same degree. I think I thought I needed to go. I think I thought growing up that I probably would go. Um, and coming out of a place like Goldman, there's a really large number of people, particularly senior people, who had gone to business school. But at the time, I got an offer to stay at Goldman and be promoted, and so I knew that I could get promoted at Goldman without going to business school. And I also knew that the thing that I most wanted to do that wasn't business school, which was sort of go into the startup world, um, didn't really need a business degree. And at the time in the tech ecosystem, I would say it was actually even actively looked down on. And I kind of got to business school and I was like, I'm going to wait 2 years. Like I really liked I really enjoyed the job I had at Goldman. I worked with super smart people and super smart clients, and it was really interesting. And then the other thing I wanted to do was startups, and I was like, I'm going to wait 2 years to figure out if the thing I think I want to do after, I'm not even going to get to try it really for 2 years. Like that seems kind of dumb. And so I dropped out. That was a challenging phone call to my father, who was extremely disappointed. Um, but it was the right thing for
What
me.
business school were you at that you dropped out of?
I went to Wharton. I also will say it was not a reflection of Wharton. Obviously, I think it's a great
Of
school, and I
course.
met many great people from there. It was just kind of not the right thing for me at that moment.
Yeah, but now, and did you didn't go back to have a business degree? You've gotten your business degree in your jobs that have come, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Essentially.
Yeah. That's kind of how I view it.
I know but it's interesting because there's a lot of pressure today on people to go get
Yeah.
their degree from wherever it's going to be from. Clearly, Wharton's one of the most
Yeah.
prestigious degrees.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like you, Kate. I'm kind of like learning on the job is like, how can you learn
Yeah.
it any better
Yeah.
than actually living it? But then
Yeah.
again, there's values to going back to school as well. I sit on a couple of
Yeah.
advisory boards. So then what happened? You came back. Did Goldman take you, or were you out on your own then?
Oh no, I basically at that point, I'd left Goldman, gone to business school. I left, and then I started to make my way into the tech world, and found my way to so I was like, all right, if I'm pulling the ripcord, I'm really going to pull the ripcord. So I went to a Series A funded startup. It was basically the two founders, a couple of engineers, one other non-technical person. I joined as a community manager. I took I feel like salary transparency is important. I took a massive pay cut to do it. And I joined as a community manager. So it was like sort of a, not a super exciting title to me, at the time. But I was like, it's a chance to get in on the ground floor and just see what's happening. Um, and so I had the good fortune of the founders sort of knowing that I had come from finance, realized that my skill set would probably apply well to acquisition marketing, which is basically the kind of marketing where you're trying to spend a dollar and pretty immediately get a return. It's really quantitative in nature, and so they spotted that ability and let me. They weren't well funded enough to hire someone who knew what they were doing, so I got to learn on the job. And so I spent 4 years learning how to do acquisition marketing and some retention at an online dating site, which was a phenomenal place to cut my teeth.
It's so funny. I just had that conversation with someone in my family this morning about having enough money to be able to hire people who have experience who know what they're doing versus all of you learning together.
Yes.
Right? And the combination of all of that is just so interesting. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
At what point did you finally say, all right, these are good. I want these experiences, but now I want these experiences to align with a value system I have.
Yeah.
When did that all emerge for you?
Um, I I mean, it was the company was like basically sold. And so it, to be honest, I was like, I'm just continuing to try to learn and grow. And then basically that was a bit of a forcing moment for me. And I interviewed very widely um, at the time. And I think what drew me to Bombas, over many of the other places I talked to was that sort of strong sense of values. I actually really did not want to do early stage.
Right.
Again, I was like, it's a very different stage, but ultimately it was the that values alignment and the opportunity, to work on something fun, to work on something physical, um, and that really helped.
Well, we talked a little bit about this, and you gave us like these
Yeah.
tips, and I thought they were really great. So we're going to share them with everybody, which was business is a force for good. That's a great photo, by the way, Kate.
Thanks.
Here's and you said like, listen, now as I look at my life, these are the things that really matter.
Yep.
Um, and so I thought maybe you could talk a little bit through these for our guests.
Yeah, absolutely. So caring about, I think these all came up sort of in the context of Bombas and what drew me to it originally. So the caring about people part, I mentioned that Dave, the founder of Bombas, really wanted to win the Best Places to Work award, and he, along with the other founders, really care deeply about sort of treating people right, and that's employees, it's partners, it's the community we serve on the giving side, and that really mattered quite a lot to me, and is something that really attracted me. And I think it's hard to be a force for good in the world if fundamentally you're not caring about people. Um, Anything else on that one that you think is
No, no, no.
important?
I think
Yeah.
I think the description here, it's about all people, everybody that you touch. We talk about that a lot at Generation W as well, is everybody we touch. We want to be a caring partner.
Yep.
And that's important, right? It's important and it's grounding. It's really
Yep.
grounding.
Yep. 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 The second one, long term vision, I think, where it stood out for me, and I'll put it in the context of when I originally joined Bombas. Something I really appreciated about the founders is they didn't get caught up in needing to do, like, they were really clear that they wanted to build a long-term business, that this was something that they didn't want to have be a flash in the pan, and so they approached it uh, in a really thoughtful way, and that impacted everything from our strategy around how we raised or didn't raise capital. It impacted how we dealt with issues, things like quality issues, um, customer support. Our founder personally took all customer support calls, in the early days for honestly quite some time, and it was because he wanted to hear. Partly there's no one else to do it, but also a huge part is he really wanted to be able to talk to customers directly and help inform, where the company needed to go, even in the very early stage.
Right, right, right. And you
Yeah.
got that, right?
Yep.
Um, all right. And then the last one is values alignment.
Yeah. So this one I feel like we already kind of touched on, which was just that, in chatting with Bombas relative to the other places that I was interviewing with at the time, that values alignment piece really stood out.
I definitely, and you could hear that.
Yeah.
Trish has a great question, as she
Yeah.
always does. Can you share what
Yeah.
drew Dave, not
Yeah.
Drew,
Yeah.
to make such a difference in his business? Did he do this with another company, or was this his first? Maybe, what
Uh,
made him, what allowed him to emerge with this
yeah.
unique set of values and goals?
Yeah. Um, this is probably a better question for Dave around the values and goals part. But in terms of the original spark for the idea for the company, he saw a quote on Facebook from the Salvation Army that socks were the number one most requested clothing item in homeless shelters. Um, and so he sort of saw the need, and it was around the time that Tom's was getting big. And so he thought, what if we took the Tom's model and applied it to socks? We could help solve this need, the number one, clothing item need in homeless shelters. And that was the impetus. He started talking to the other, founders, and things went from. Then they got really into sock research, as I described earlier,
Right.
and the
It was
rest
so
of
funny
history.
because I did see a video where the CNBC reporter said, "So what do you know about socks?" And he goes, "Nothing." And then he said, "But I think that was a good thing." And I
Yeah.
just love that answer because we all feel
Yeah.
like, oh, we have to be an expert. And
Yeah.
expertise helps. But I think what he was saying was I was an outsider. And
Yeah.
so I was motivated to see it through a fresh lens that
Yeah.
perhaps others would have dismissed. All those things you talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about
Yeah.
socks, but we're talking about how we view the world and how it
Yeah.
motivates how we think, right?
Yep.
How we interpret, how we research. And that was so refreshing, I thought.
Yep. I agree.
Right? I
Yeah.
thought that. Now, the one other thing I have to bring is another piece of research. We talked about it is, I don't know how many Shark Tank fans there are here.
Yeah.
But there are, I'm sure there's some. I definitely am. I actually can say that I know Mark Cuban from before he sold, when he was broadband, believe it or not.
Wow.
So now to see him, it's every day. Of course, I sat with him in meetings at the NBA as well.
Nice.
But Bombas was a Shark Tank candidate, right?
Yes. Yep. We were on the show in August of 2014.
And is there stories that are legion, like at the company that people still talk about?
Yeah, I mean, so the actual filming happens in advance. So the filming happened before I got here. But what I most vividly remember is we were quite worried the traffic was going to crash the site. And so like one of the first projects I worked on when I got here, which was like maybe a month before we aired, was like, how do we make sure we sort of capture all of this interest without taking the whole site down? So I have very vivid memories of being in WeWork, kind of sorting through that.
That's pretty amazing. So that really does happen, right? You on the show, they loved it, and great response, and the world reacts. I mean, I read a data point I might that said Bombas is I don't know by far. Bombas is the number one retailing product that's ever been on Shark Tank.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's extraordinary, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was a great. It was definitely a really helpful platform to tell our story. I think something that's really, because we're not just a product, we have the mission element too, and also because our product is better and it requires a little bit of explaining as to why it's better, because most people are like, it's socks, how could it be better? And the answer is like, definitely be better. I think the ability,
right?
Yeah, the ability to sort of be on network TV talking about, all right, our socks are better because of the seamless toe, the honeycomb arch support, the soft cotton that we use. And by the way, we donate a pair for every item purchased. There's much more room to kind of tell that story in a forum like Shark Tank, which is, really helpful, especially when you're early on.
Right. And let me just say this, we are receiving the love and joy from Surfer Negra. Hey, Sam. This is another organization that actually values alignment, because they're an organization that is attracting and young, you don't have to be that young, I suppose, but women of color to the surfing world. It's led by a phenomenal woman by Gigi Lucas, and it's nice that Sim's here with us today. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. I guess if I have to ask you one, I guess I get one more question.
Okay.
Maybe two.
Okay.
Well, wait, Kate, I'm gonna do something different.
All right.
Is there a question you'd like someone to ask you because you want to share a great piece of information that we have not touched on?
I feel like I should have a great answer to this, but I don't know that I do.
I mean, I didn't really give you a heads up on that, but I was just thinking, because we did cover a whole lot, and we really do appreciate all of the really the three tips that you gave us to think about
Yeah.
it. I am still, as you can tell everybody, really taken by the research. How long did it take to go from research to market?
You mean in terms of the physical product?
The socks, yeah.
Yeah, the founder spent 2 years doing research and development.
So they had to raise
So,
money, but I guess they weren't getting paid then. Is that how it works?
so we were the most at the time the most funded Indiegogo campaign
Oh,
for apparel.
all
So
right. So
that
for
was the
anyone who doesn't know,
initial.
Indiegogo is like, what's the other one that we did?
Yeah.
Kickstarter. People can
Yep.
see your product, they can give you money, and then you agree that you will send them something when you get there,
Yep.
right? How many socks did you have to commit to for Indiegogo? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think there were different. I believe there were different tiers. So if you donated, if you gave $25, you got X number. If you gave 100, you got Y
Yeah,
number.
of course. And
I
there was
don't
just a
remember off
lot
the
of,
top.
but it's really, if it was the most successful, it was a lot. And then
Yeah.
where are the products made? Debbie wants to know where are the products made.
Yeah. Predominantly in China at this point.
Okay. Yeah, China's closed down for a while. I hope that doesn't
Yeah.
that impact us. But as we're all dealing with some of these
Yes.
difficult,
Supply chain.
yeah, supply chain issues, right?
Yep. Yep.
All right, well, I better get on now and order them, right? So I can get
Yes.
into, or I can get into the current inventory, which would
Yep.
be great. All right, well,
Yes.
I want to thank you, Kate, so much for taking the time, meeting our Generation W community, sharing with us your thoughts, your ideas, and a little bit about Bombas. I think it's inspiring for all of us to know that this kind of company and culture and doing good is thriving, because I think it's motivating for a lot of people. I just want to thank everybody who's joined. And just a reminder, if you're looking to be inspired, motivated, and to learn something, which is why we come together here, Generation W Connection, our 2022 event programming is available, for your viewing pleasure. Would highly recommend it, as a single experience. Get it, and you know what? Watch a little bit at a time. The diversity of the speakers, the content. We've just received so much incredible feedback. Actually, you know what? Next time, Sherry, what we should do is we should lay out exactly what some of the speakers are. Obviously, Dr. Edie Eager is always incredible. We had Dr. Olenda Johnson. We have Dr. Lapchek. We talked about sports. We talked about connection, the rising suns, the moms, our environment, right? Nurtured by nature. All of these are on there. And also it's good to share. You can put together a group experience. I think maybe our group should go back and watch together some of them. Actually, it's a good idea. It's truly a refreshing experience. We'll be back again to celebrate on May 11th. Moms, right? Moms. We just had that great experience with moms and their sons. Sherry reminded us that moms are wow upside down. And then, Sherry, I was thinking about it, that maybe we should flip it, that wow is moms upside down. Right? Let's just start with the wows. May 11th, love for you to share great mom stories. Joy Kurtz, I'm counting on you. Trisha, all of us will come together. My sister Jill, I think, was on. Maybe you can talk about our mom, Jill. And we'll get an update on the status of moms in the workplace as well. As we know, COVID has been particularly harsh and difficult around the issue of women in employment. There has been a tremendous rebound, but the issue of moms is an ongoing one that needs to be tracked. So we hope we'll bring you that too. May 11th, celebrate moms. Today, we celebrate Kate Huyett. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Be
Thank
well.
you so much.
Bye, Kate. Thank you.
Bye.